So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, talk about the market that you're in, talk about how long you've been in the business.
Well, let's just be honest. It's moms of real estate. So, you want to hear about my kids first. So, my
Okay.
son turned 16 in June and my daughter is 17. So, I have two teenagers in the house, which is amazing. I also have 41 poultry in the backyard, 40 chickens and a turkey, and a husband who's working from home down the hall. And that's the home side of me. And then my real estate side, I've been a broker for 22 years. I'm an independent broker owner. I've done primarily residential, but I moved into multifamily during the pandemic because, like many people, when you're really good at something, you get a little bored. So I stretched out to learn some new things in real estate. And I'm in the Concord, North Carolina location, which is just outside of Charlotte. So my team works the greater Charlotte area, but the older I get, the less driving I do, but that's why you hire great people to go do things for you. So there's a little quick snapshot for you.
Oh, I love that. For the real estate geeks out there, how many transactions is your team brokerage doing a year? And kind of what does that look like?
Well, it's all over the place. So at my height of business, I was doing about 75 million as a team, and my team is about 8 at any given time, sometimes 7, sometimes 9, because there's always going to be some give and take. And last year we did right at 40 million. So we're not at the volume we used to be at, but as a team, we've made really specific choices about that. And we can talk about goal setting if you want to, but the way that my team sets goals is we do a team advance every year in December where we plan the year in advance. And so with that, each person determines their income goals, their vacation goals, their education goals, any personal things like weight loss or fitness, those kinds of journeys. And then we take everybody's goals and add it up, and that becomes the team goal. It's not the way that I used to do it, where I wanted to be number one. And I was number one in Charlotte in 09. I mean, it's a huge accomplishment. It didn't mean anything. And so as a team, we said, you know what? We don't want to be 100-person team. We're cool with who we are. And as long as we hit our individual goals, then everybody gets a chance to be happy. And so that's where we sit now. We do a solid business. Yeah. And we're very delighted for what we have, but we have quit chasing other people's dreams.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's amazing. I also believe in what you're saying about having goals that are really holistic around what everybody really needs from their life, especially during different phases in your life. It depends on the ages of your kids. It depends on so many of the things that you're trying to go after during that specific time, or even in the systems and processes area. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up, build that team, put your systems in place so that you're able to really grow. I'm in that phase right now too, where I feel like my own personal production probably isn't even as high as it always has been, just because I'm so focused on building the team and building their foundations so that they can really produce, and so that we can continue to build the team and the systems and education for the team members and closing ratios and all that stuff.
Well, and one of the best phrases I ever heard from this is one of my dear friends, and she's another instructor, Marky Lemons Ryall from Chicago. A lot of y'all know Marky. She's high energy. Marky said to me one time, it was just one of those moments of, sometimes you have to stop making money to make money. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially if you're a highly driven multitasker out there doing everything person. You feel like you can't slow down. But if you don't slow down to do exactly what you said, put the processes in place, get some better training in place, then you're never going to get to the next level. And so when she said that out loud, I was like, oh, I'm writing that down. And for those of y'all that didn't write it down, sometimes you have to stop making money to make money. And that's Marky Lemons Ryall.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Or even just if you want to get to the point where instead of having to be the one that makes every dollar, you want to receive a little bit, then that's another thing you have to think about. So I'm
investing, team growing, revenue building. There's all these different angles to get into, right? I mean, nothing ever stops in real estate, which is good and bad.
So with, you have how many kids, you said?
I have two teenagers.
Two teenagers. And you got into the business how old were they or did you get into the business before you had kids?
I got in young and single in my 20s. And because I got in young and single in my 20s, I worked 7 days a week. It didn't bother me to work every hour. Right. And then I met my now husband and we got married, and I still worked 7 days a week because, we didn't have kids. Well, we played roulette twice. We got 2 kids. We stopped playing roulette. I'll just tell y'all, sometimes that's just how it works. And so when I had my daughter, I was like, well, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. And so I carried her around in her little infant carrier. And then I found out they start to move and they don't just stay where you lay them down. And I was like, this isn't gonna work for me. I didn't think I was cut out at that time to do that. So, found a daycare and all that, then had my son. And then, we had 2 kids in daycare. And so we're paying for that. And I honestly, looking back at younger Leigh, she should have slowed down and said, wait a minute, I'm working to pay for daycare. I could have just made some different choices, but you always look back and have really good ideas about what you could have done, but it worked for us. And my kids have from day one gone on listing appointments and buyer consults. They know real estate, but I also learned very quickly that real estate couldn't be in first place in my life. And it had been first place in my life as a single realtor and even as a young married realtor. But once you have kids, you're faced with decisions. A kid gets a fever, you can't go do what you want to do. Your kid gets a blowout, you got to stop and deal with it. And then you have school and you have parent things, and it just continues to snowball until you get really, really focused on how you're going to line those priorities up. And so, lucky for me, technology came in when I was having my kids. I don't know how my dad did it back in the day. My dad got his license in 1978. So I grew up as the child of a realtor, which was also, I saw things that he did that I didn't want to do because I watched my dad, he'd give up a lot to be a great realtor that I wished I'd had as a parent. And so I watched the trade-offs. I tried not to make them myself. And so this little poisonous device can be your best friend and also your worst enemy. But those are back to more choices that you make as a parent, as a realtor, as a business owner, as a human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when your kids, so I would say now, they're out of school. Are they leaving home soon, or what's the plan? Are they going to?
Well, rising junior, rising senior. So they're probably going to go to college, although I'm pushing them very hard to look at community college and not wind up in a pathway they might be miserable in under a mountain of debt, because I enjoyed my time in college, but has it been relevant to my real estate career? Not so much. And I will say this, though, they are both fully aware that the minute they turn 18, they are taking the pre-licensing class and they are getting their licenses. Even if they never intend to be realtors, I want them to have access to referral revenue for the rest of their natural lives. And I wish that my dad had explained that to me when I was 18, but that was a different era. We didn't think about the constant opportunity for referrals then because it wasn't a social media interconnected world. And I've told my kids, like, y'all going to have friends in college. If you go to college that want to buy a kiddie condo, you should make a referral fee. When you get your big job and everybody buys their first house, you want the referral fee. I mean, what an opportunity for an 18-year-old. So they have no choice in that matter.
Yeah, I think I love that. I love that idea because truthfully, if you think about it, especially in like New York, where everybody a lot of people send their kids to these Ivy League schools and it's all about this crazy education and spending a ton of money on private schools. There's not, I would say real estate's gotten more glamorous just because of television and that kind of a thing. But for us, it's still not a career that anybody says, hey, you're going to go to school and you're planning on being a real estate agent, which is crazy to me because as a mom, doesn't mean that it's more flexible for me, because I definitely think that I feel like I work a little more than most people, but still it's something that is a real career. And if you're scaling it, you're learning all kinds of skills, business skills, sales skills, everything, counting. I mean, I wish I majored in business in college because it would have helped me more.
Well, I did major in business and it's had less relevance to my real estate business than my waiting tables did, because I waited tables to pay for college. And it was that experience that I think has made me a great realtor, because you learn how to deal with the general public, but you also have a safe space in the kitchen where you can say, these people suck, which is what we do in our mastermind groups. We talk about how people drive us crazy, but you learn how to manage your money. You learn how to manage busy times and slow times. And you learn how to create a collegial environment between the front of house and back of house if you're going to take care of people. I'm a big fan of people who wait tables, but also I've discovered probably, I'd say at least a third of our highly successful realtors in the country came from a hospitality background of some sort. And that's why we're so good at real estate. Did you work hospitality ever? Did you bartend, wait tables, work in a hotel host stand?
Yeah, of course. Always.
See?
Always. best way to pay your bills. And I also think that, what you learn from it is you learn also how to get ahead of problems, because if you don't communicate with your tables about the fact that the food's late, or that there's something wrong, or that something's not available, they just get pissed off. Whereas if all you have to do is just communicate with people, and then, hey, oh, it's late, let me bring you some extra booze, I don't know, whatever it is, as long as you're communicating with them, they're fine. And I think you definitely learn that from waiting tables.
Well, and the timing of what you just said is so perfect, because the markets are changing right now as we speak. And so a lot of realtors that are used to the market we've had for the last 2.5 years suddenly won't know what to say. So they're going to go into hiding. But when things are uncertain and you don't really know what the answer is, and you don't know what's coming next, you don't hide. You stay in front of your people and say, I'm not really sure how much longer it's going to be, but let's just hang out together. And that's where great realtors are made in markets like this. And we saw it during the last recession. My business was the biggest it's ever been between 7 and 11, because I dialed into education and networking, learned how to manage the markets, communicated in a better way. And while other realtors were getting out of the business, I was growing. And so I'm not going to say I'm excited about a changing economic climate and a changing market, but I'm excited about it because it's an opportunity to serve my community in a different way, which is exactly what happens when you're waiting tables and suddenly you've 86 the most popular entree.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I feel the same way. I do better on a market that's actually a more difficult market, a more challenging market, because I think you have to, it's being able to be honest, straightforward, give people the hard news early and easily, that makes people want to work with you. And also the fact that the market slows down a little bit, I find it a little bit nicer with doing the deals, because there's less frenzy. You can slow down. There's, you can just kind of take things more in stride. Granted, it's lovely when you can put something up and it sells in 5 minutes. I love that. But you get what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. Because I've hated this multiple offer environment, because it's so hard to give good counsel to your buyers when you don't know. And it's hard to give good counsel to your sellers when you don't know. And everything is just running so quickly that it's hard to put that thoughtfulness into it that people expect. And we actually do put the thoughtfulness in behind the scenes, and it's just harder for them to see it. So a slowing market makes it, I think, more equitable to buyers and to sellers. And
Right.
That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited about that too. So we don't keep these super long, but I wanted to dig in on one last thing, before we kind of close it out, which is what are your real tips for women who are moms or who are thinking about being moms, going into real estate, and the work-life management of it? Because I feel like balance is tough.
Impossible.
To say that there's any balance. And I think work-life integration is a good way of talking about it. I would love to hear from you. What are your kind of top tips?
I like work-life integration. I might steal that from you, because I've tried to blow that balance thing away. It's just not possible. And frankly, it's okay if you enjoy real estate. I just want everybody that watches this to understand, if you're a workaholic because you have a passion for real estate, that's okay. It's just a figuring out of how you layer things in and integrate. So I look at this as a decision process that you have to go through of where are you going to make your sacrifices? Well, the first one is kudos to you for having a business and a family. And by the way, have more babies. The more babies you have, the happier life is. I wish I'd had more than 2, but when your second one has some birth defects, you just stop. And I wish I'd had more kids. So have more babies is my first mama hen advice. But the second thing I'll tell you is it's all about the decisions that we make day to day, and we don't get to make a month-long schedule. It just isn't realistic. You can put some things in there, but you can't really plan out, because every day is full of little workshops and fires to put out here and opportunities here and this notification. The most important thing on your phone, though, to make your life better is in your settings. It's called airplane mode. If y'all would put your phone in airplane mode for 1 hour, 2 hours at a time, you could breathe for a second. And when you breathe, it makes you a better mom, because then you can turn all this crap off and actually listen. One of the things that I have been doing as long as my kids are alive is when they get in the car, my phone goes in airplane mode, so that I'm going to listen to what they say. And when they're littler, the back seat is your magical space because they say everything while you're holding the steering wheel. You hear what's happening at school, what kid did this and what teacher said this, and you get all the inside skinny that a parent has to have. Well, if my phone's not in airplane mode and it's buzzing, zzz, 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 they see that and they hear it and they notice when our eyes cut over to it and they're like, seriously, mom, you're not even listening. This forces you to be a better listener, which is also an important skill as a realtor. So I don't take my phone inside with me on appointments either. I leave it in the freaking car because it's not going to help me to have it sitting there making any sound at all. Even if my sound's off, the light goes off. Your clients know you weren't listening. They're like, come on, Leigh Brown, listen. So my kids got to the point where if my phone wasn't in airplane mode and they heard it buzz, saw it light up, they're like, Mom. I'm like, oh, you're right. So your kids can help hold you accountable. I think that's a very underestimated thing that we have available to us. And the other thing is you have to make a decision about your schedule. I work probably 80 to 100 hours a week, but I don't work on Sundays. And I haven't worked on Sundays in years because first of all, I had to get over my fear that I was going to lose business. And that's the reason you work too much and you won't turn your phone off. You have this innate fear. You're going to miss an opportunity. You're going to disappoint a client. You're going to disappoint somebody else. Well, guess what? If they didn't spring forth from your womb, I don't really care if they're that disappointed. I've got to make sure that the people I'm raising turn out to be decent humans. That's more important than a deal. So come on, drill it back in. And so for Sundays, we have family time. We have church. We have family time in the afternoon. We might work in the garden or work on the chickens. And then my parents come over for supper. And that's our Sunday. And clients don't get to have that. So you get to make a choice here. You got to choose the person you slept with. You got to choose the kids that came out of you. Now you get to choose a business life that makes sense. Now you're thinking, but Leigh, how do you make any money? Great. You tell people it's communication, right? And so my clients know I'm available for their real estate needs from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday, and weekends are by appointment only. I don't have to tell them that they're never going to get a Sunday because I just told them my weekends are by appointment only. And that's all you have to tell people is if they think they have access to you and you're like, golly gee willikers, I don't have Sunday this week. I do have Saturday at 3:00. You gave them something because I don't mind working on Saturdays. My husband goes to his mother's house on Saturdays and I'd rather work. And so you can make those choices, but it's not going to work if you do that crap thing I see realtors do online. I'm available for your needs 24/7. What are you doing? And I also put guardrails on my day 7 to 7 because I'm a morning person. I get up at 4:00. By 7:00, I'm pretty worthless. By 8 or 9:00, there's just no point in talking to me at all. But my clients know they have a 12-hour window to reach me. That's very reasonable. And if you are not a morning person and you're like, hell no, Leigh Brown, I ain't talking to anybody at 7 a.m. That's fine. You can make your guardrails 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., but just put guardrails on there. You can absolutely shift if you need to, but you have to let people know that there are reasonable boundaries here. And so if you're going to a ball game, you're going to a band concert, tell people I'm unavailable for 3 hours. They're not going to go anywhere else if they're good people. If they ditch you and go find another realtor because you were with your family, let them go because they're not your people. You don't have to please everybody. And you certainly don't have to be available for somebody else's whimsies. And I'll give you a real life story on this because when my kids were young, we had them in ball because everybody has to play ball in our house. My husband and I met playing softball, so it's like a family rule. Well, when my daughter made it into softball, I coached her teams. And as a lifelong ball player, I'm totally skilled at that. But it was a different reason that I did it. I had to leave this in my pocketbook while I was coaching the team because I'm now responsible for not just my kid, but other people's kids. And when you've got a bunch of 7 and 8 year olds, one forgot her ADD medicine, one doesn't have her cleats tied, this one's got to pee, this one's late, this one's going. And so you're like managing all these different little people. You cannot look at this and effectively do the job right. So my phone's in my pocketbook. I'm managing kids. And I had this one kid, there's always the one who has no business being out there, but parents signed them up. And she was just not athletic. Let's just be honest. This child's not going to be in the Olympics. Well, she finally made contact with the ball. And of course, I'm just beside myself. I'm like, you did it, girl, you did it. And she makes it to first base. And she's screaming for her mom. And she's like, Mom, look, mom. You know what her mom did? Her mom's in the bleachers doing this. Oh, good job. And I about came out of my skin and jumped over in the bleachers to shake that woman because I'm like, your baby is right there. She is this age for this time. And I'm her coach. I'm watching and cheering for her, but I don't matter to her nearly as much as mama does. And so I had a parent meeting after that game. I'm like, if you're in the bleachers and your baby's on the field, put the phone down. This is not life threatening. And so that's where we have to take a look at things and take a step back, which is hard as realtors, especially in a very busy market. And when we've worked hard to be busy, I get it. You worked your tail off to make your phone ring. So now work your tail off to control it. And I'll tell you, my business is as big as I want it to be. If I wanted to make it go back to number one, I can turn that spigot back on. I make very specific choices now because money is just not worth chasing for me anymore. My bills are paid. We have a great investment strategy. We're doing very well. I'm very honored and grateful for that. But I can't get back my kids' younger years when I did work too much. I did work too many days, and I'm not doing it again. And so just don't be you, be awesome, own it, live in it, show your kids what it looks like to be an entrepreneur, but also show them what it looks like to put them in a place where you're willing to disciple them as a parent, and you're not just going to treat them as a backpack.
Well, I think those are great parting words. I think I love hearing this stuff, and you're right. Of course you're right. And there are a lot of people out there who need to hear it. So Leigh Brown, you can find her on Instagram. You can find her on, I'm assuming you have all the other, you're everywhere.
The only place I don't really pay attention to is TikTok because I don't like it. I don't understand it, but some of my stuff is over there. My team puts it there. So if you try to message me there, just know that's not my jam. Instagram, I enjoy, and then Facebook some, and LinkedIn some, but Instagram is the happiest place, I think, right now. Hopefully
it is. It's happy, and you have control over it, and you understand it. And it's
control.
Yeah, exactly. You have control of what you're putting out there. That's what you have control over.
That's right.
So I'm just so happy we did this. Thank you so much. It will be available on YouTube, and we will be posting some snippets on Instagram as well, which will be cross-tagged. And subscribe, like, give us some comments. I want to hear what you have to say about Leigh's words of advice and wisdom, I would say. And I hope I get to meet you in person at some point at one of these, you never know, realtor conferences, something like that.
And I'm sure we will. And you need to breathe, Mama, because I can see your stress coming out of your earlobes right now. Breathe, baby. You got this. Look at you. You're beautiful. You're all put together. You've got a successful business. Live in that space for a minute.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And it was so fun. And I'm sure we're going to see each other soon.
We will.